Let's talk about the filing technique. First, we have to be in the proper sitting position at the correct height for this. You are going to adjust your chair so that you are at chest level with your bench pin. So this is the bench pin here. So that when you work, when you file, you'll be working more or less with at the level of the bench top. The other thing you need to do is to pull the bench drawer close to your body, because you're going to use it as a support as well as for catching all the metal filings. Your workpiece, you're going to hold it with your ring clamp. So this is the ring clamp. It's made out of wood. It has two different ends. One is more square, the other one is rounder, and it has leather in between to protect your metal. This is the wedge that you insert to hold everything in place. Even for a larger piece like this one, it's actually more comfortable to work like this because you have something bigger to hold on to, and then you brace yourself against your bench pin. For something smaller, like the pieces for our project, this is even better, because if without the bench pin, you really have something really tiny to hold in your hands, and it just hurts more. So either way, we are going to use the ring clamp. Try not to do something like this with a lot of metal sticking out, because it's not going to be as stable. So this is a much better position, like this. You just have a little bit of metal sticking out. Push, tap, and now you're ready to work with this. Now, holding the file, or in my case, I'm right-handed, so I will hold the file in my dominant hand. Of course, if you're not right-handed, you will reverse these instructions. You have to be always using the bench pin. You have to brace your work against the bench pin. Very important. So you have something stable to work with. You are going to be filing like this, and you see that you are again working almost level with your bench top. The other important element is your elbow, my left elbow. It is resting on the bench drawer, so that I have these 3 points, if you want: the bench pin, my elbow on the drawer, and this hand. So it's a little bit like a tripod. It's very stable, and that allows me to have more control on what I'm doing. Again, this is all about precision. Okay. One more important thing, I'm also going to put my index finger on top of the file here. So it's kind of pointing me in the right direction, if you will. We need all these visual guides and reminders or visual clues, because this process, as you can see now, it's all about hand-eye coordination. So we have to send a message to our brain that this is where we're going, pushing forward. And the teeth are set up or positioned to work in this direction, this motion, pushing forward. They cut going this way. If you go back, they scratch the metal a bit, but they are not actually cutting or removing metal. So this is how we file, pushing forward. can also line up yourself with this, right? So you can continue. You're not filing this. This is, again, just as a visual guide or visual clue, right? But pushing forward. There's two ways of dealing with the return stroke. If you want, you can go forward and then lift, go forward again. Or you can go forward, drag, forward, drag, whatever, as long as you go forward. So that's the main thing to remember. Another point is that because we want to be efficient, you need to use as much as you can the whole length of the file. Or instead of doing this, do that using the whole length of your tool. This will be more efficient, of course, and also will give you more even results. So you have a nice, evenly filed edge in the end. Okay? Another point, again, is pressure. How much pressure do you want to put when you file to remove the metal? Some pressure, of course, but not so much that you are going to, again, lose control. Remember, if you remove too much metal, you cannot put it back. So that's it. Done. So it's better to have a light touch. So if anything goes wrong, if you go a little bit off tracks, then you'll be able to correct, hopefully. Okay, so light pressure. I think this is even more important for a brand new file, which I think would be the case for you. So a brand new file, because it's new, it will be cutting much more than a used file. Go lightly. Okay, so that's basically what you need to remember about the position and how to hold your file. This project is about precision. I will use the word precision quite a lot. In order to meet all the requirements for this project, we'll have to check our work regularly. We'll need to check a few things. First, that the edge or the edges are straight. And that goes, of course, for the square shape and for the triangular shape. So these edges should be perfectly straight. How do we check this? There are different ways. We can use the safe edge. Remember the safe edge of the file, of the flat file, the edge that does not have any teeth. It's very smooth. You can hold your piece and place the safe edge of the file against the edge in front of the light, and you should not see any light passing through in between. If you do, that means it's not straight. That means there are some high spots on the edge where it's touching, and then some lower spots where the light is allowed to go through. So you need to go back to filing until you can do this and until no light passes through. That's one way of checking with the safe edge of the flat file. Or of course you have this other perfectly straight edge of your set square, and you can check again against the light, and you don't want any light to be passing through. So that's one thing that you need to check. Maybe a tip for you, you don't have to use it, but if you have trouble remembering or seeing where the high spots are that you need to find, you could do this. You could use a black marker, cover the edge that you're checking with the marker. You need to use the ring clamp, of course. Tap, and you can gently, bracing yourself, make contact with the edge and go gently on the edge. And what I see here is that the black has remained here on the edge, but it's gone. The metal is shiny here. It's gone on that corner. So what does that mean? That means this is a high spot here. So I know now that I have to work on this to lower it a little bit, remove a little bit more metal so everything is perfectly lined up. So that's just another way of checking or visualizing, if you want, what needs to be fixed or what needs to be filed. Second, checking that the edge is true. True means that the edge is 90 degrees to the surface of the piece. Here is a very good example. This is, of course, everything here is perfect. It's a set square. This edge here, that's what we're looking at. This edge is perfectly true, which means that it's perfectly at 90 degrees with this surface and also with this surface. So in that little corner here, we have a 90-degree angle, and here we have a 90-degree angle as well. That's what a true edge is. This is what we want on all our edges, whether it's the square piece, the triangular piece, or the circle as well. Another thing we need to talk about is these pieces of brass. This is where you're going to cut your three pieces. These pieces actually look very nice and they look very straight and they seem to have true edges. In fact, they don't. And why? It's because they were not cut with a saw, they were not filed, they were cut by a big machine, big shears that when they cut the metal, they compress the metal slightly so that these edges are not perfectly true like this. They have a slightly rounded edge on each side. That's a beveled edge. We don't want that. Of course, we want a true edge. So before you cut your pieces for the project, you'll have to make sure that you file off that beveled edge first, because it is not correct. It doesn't meet our requirements. True edge, and this is beveled. Here there's a slightly rounded edge all around. Okay, so you have filed your edges. They are straight, they are true. They should actually stand by themselves if they are true, like this. So once you file your edges, once they have the right size and so on, do that little test, and on each side it should be able to stand on its own if it's really a true edge. That's it. One more check that needs to be done, and that's for the squares. If this is a square, that means each one of the four corners is a 90-degree angle. For the triangle, of course, these corners or these angles are not going to be 90, they're going to be 60. all three of them, same. So let's go back to the square. How would you check this? You would, of course, use the set square and check your angle this way. Again, I find it easier to put it right in front of the light so that I can see whether it's touching. It should touch on the two sides without any light passing through. That's the test. Once you've checked your corners and with your set square and you know that this one is correct, it's 90 degrees, I like to put a little mark there because now I know this one is good, I won't touch it anymore, and I can work on the other three angles. So try to use your markers to remind you of what has been checked and what hasn't been checked. Another check, very important, remember precision, precision, precision. Make sure that we meet the specific requirements for measurements. These requirements are for the square, all the sides need to be 20 millimeters. For the triangle, 20 millimeters as well for each three sides. And our circle needs to be 20 millimeters in diameter. Now, you are very lucky because there is a margin of error that's allowed. So it's better, of course, if your measurements are exactly 20 millimeters, but we are allowed 0.2 of a millimeter off on each side. If it is 19.8 millimeters, it's okay. It's not the best, but it is acceptable. 19.7 though is not, because it's not 0.2 of a millimeter. Similarly, 20.1 is acceptable. 20.2 is as well, not great, but okay. But 20.3 is not. So how do we check these measurements with the calipers? You have another demo on this, so I won't explain this again, but you would check your sides and they have to be, again, exactly 20. In this case, this side here for this shape is 20.4, so more fighting is needed here until I get to 20 exactly. Okay. Always check your measurements, and again, once you've checked a side, let's say this one is good, you can put a little dot or a little check mark and you know this one is perfect. We've talked about how we find a straight edge. Now let's look at a curve, how to find a curve. And we'll use as an example the circle. So you need to do 2 of these for the project. One circle will be cut out of the 1 millimeter plate and the other one out of the sticker plate, 1.5. Okay, holding, using the ring clamp, of course. This time we're going to use the rounded end of it. Put it in, insert the wedge, tap a few times so it's nice and solid. So something I did not maybe mention really earlier is that not only we push forward, so this time going around the curve shape, index finger here pointing in the right direction, you can put your thumb here. Okay. Now, when we find, we're using the whole length of our, not just the hand and the wrist, but the whole arm and elbow. Okay, before I leave you a few tips, a few filing tips. Check your work regularly for accuracy of measurements, straightness, and also check that the edges are true. We need to learn how to see. We need to look closely. We need to compare things to make sure that we see properly. This is very important. If we don't see properly, then we are not going to be able to file properly. Remember to use a light pressure. If you remove too much metal, you can't put it back on. Feel free to adapt this bench pin to your needs. And remember, it's not precious. It can be modified to help you work better. Thanks for watching.